Do you ever feel like your own stuff gets in the way of your parenting style? That sometimes you feel like a really ineffective parent because of your own emotional health or the stuff going on in your own life, and you feel like a failure sometimes. Does it affect your parenting style? I don't know about you, but I definitely have felt this way. Today on Boldly Driven Conversations with Bree, we're going to be talking about emotional health and how it affects the effectiveness of our parenting style. So join me today and let's learn something together. Okay, so parenting. I have 3 kids. Their age ranges is quite large. My oldest is 18, is now doing like secondary education, out of high school. My middle child is 13 and in middle school, and my youngest is 7 in the 2nd grade. All boys, and they are all very, very different. Just like your children, they're all very different from each other. It never made sense to me how you put the same stuff in, you should get the same stuff out, right? But there's such a myriad of personalities and how our children respond to things. And in my case, and I'm sure in yours as well, I have evolved and changed as a parent, and my parenting style has changed so much from my first child to my last child. As my 18-year-old son likes to remind me all the time, Mom, I used to get in trouble for doing that. I used to get spanked. I used to get yelled at. I used to get punished. And my 7-year-old really has it so much easier than the other two. But I think my point is that our parenting evolves. Our parenting changes. We know better. We do better. And sometimes, though, our emotional health, well, all the time, our emotional health absolutely affects the way we parent our children. And my emotional intelligence when I was like 26, when I had my first son, is very different from my emotional intelligence as a almost 44-year-old. So it's grown a lot by leaps and bounds, and it's constantly moving and changing. And I'm just different. And your emotional health is going to grow and it's going to dip, and depending on what's going on in your life and how you're taking care of yourself. And my emotional health a few years ago was in a really bad place because of a lot of circumstances going on in my life. And I have been really working hard to get myself to a place where I'm emotionally available and healthy for my children as my most favorite, best self as a mom. So how does our emotional health make our parenting either effective or ineffective? We're not talking about parenting styles here. We're talking about how emotional health itself affects the way that we parent. Okay. So we have to first understand that our emotional health does significantly affect how we parent and the effectiveness of our parenting style. So emotional regulation is the first thing that we have to think of when we're talking about emotional health and parenting. So those parents who are emotionally regulated what that means is that they can manage their own emotions, that they are able to manage them in a way that doesn't affect the children in a negative way. This means that the parent will respond calmly and rationally, even in irrational times. Caveat, we are all humans, and we all at times are going to raise our voice. We're going to react rather than respond. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to say and do things that we don't necessarily want to say or do, because there are going to be moments where we are going to be emotionally unregulated because, hello, human. But there are ways that we can make sure that we are keeping ourselves healthier emotionally and more emotionally regulated. A parent, therefore, conversely, who does not have good emotional regulation, is not able to effectively manage their own emotions, will oftentimes be an ineffective parent because they will react impulsively. They aren't responding, which is a choice. They are just reacting to situations, consistently, especially. And when we do this consistently, this will lead to us to having inconsistent discipline with our children. It will lead to us having outbursts, our children having outbursts, and our children will withdraw from us. And oftentimes we will withdraw from our children. And that means we won't have quality time with them, that we're not having meaningful time with them. We're not investing in our relationship with our children. Or conversely, if we're not able to emotionally regulate ourselves ineffectively, we will cling to our children and we make our children our everything, so that we can feel more emotionally stable. We idolize our children and we just cling to them and we just make them our everything. And so that is also ineffective and is emotional dysregulation. This often happens when relationship, your intimate relationship, in a partner relationship might be on the rocks, when there's lots of big family issues going on, financial issues, just lots of stress in your life in general, in especially your other adult relationships. Oftentimes, or if we don't have good adult relationships in general, we will cling to our relationship with our children. And this can make our children withdraw from us even more. And it makes our parenting them ineffective, especially very young. And even when they are teenagers, especially, I have noticed the more that I would cling to my teenager, the more they kind of withdraw. And it's very natural. It's a very natural biological thing for our teenage children to detach from us in certain ways. And because they are finding their own autonomy, they are finding their own opinions, and it's very natural. And the more we try to no, don't leave me, or try to cling to them, oftentimes they pull away even more, and it pushes them away. So how we make sure that we're not doing this in a way that is going to hurt the relationship in the long term is by making sure that we are emotionally regulated, so we're not making impulsive reactions and decisions. The second thing that is really important when we're talking about emotional health and the effectiveness in our parenting that affects it is having empathy and being sensitive to empathy and compassion and other people's feelings, being emotionally intelligent in general and growing that emotional intelligence. So when we are empathetic and we're emotionally intelligent, this means that we are going to be more attuned to our children. This makes us more effective in our parenting. This allows us to respond to our children's feelings. We can listen to their feelings, feel their feelings, hear their feelings through their tone of voice, through their actions, and we're just more attuned to them in general and their feelings rather than just focusing on our own feelings. We are able to kind of have that peripheral vision, if you will, of what's going on with our kids and being more emotionally attuned to them in general. When we are ineffective in having empathy and being sensitive, emotionally attuned to our children, we struggle to empathize with their feelings. This leads to misunderstandings and leads to oftentimes strained relationships, especially when the children get older, when they're making their own decisions, when they're making their own opinions about their relationship with you and the way you parent and the choices that we make and the relationships that we have and how we hold ourselves and how we just live our lives. They're going to have opinions about it. And so this will cause the relationship with our children to be very strained when we struggle to empathize with their feelings. Even if we don't agree with how their actions, their behaviors, it's really good for us to attune to why they're feeling what they're feeling and making sure that we're validating those feelings that they have. Even if we don't agree with them. Feelings are not wrong. Feelings are not moral things. They're not right or wrong. But the actions that we have in our feelings can be right or wrong. But we should always validate the feeling, because feelings are pointers to something that needs to be addressed, either in the relationship with your child or something going on with our children. So we need to be attuned to that. And that makes us more effective parents. The third thing that our own emotional regulation, our own emotional health affects in our parenting and makes it ineffective or effective is our communication skills. So communication, the quote is a certain percentage of what we say and a certain more percentage of what we do, our actions, right? And how we make someone feel and how we are communicating. So I would also add to that, communication is also, we can be wonderful communicators and it still be ineffective because it's not being received because of prior interactions and prior experience that our children have with us when we have been emotionally dysregulated, when we have not had good emotional health. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be cognizant of that. And so this is where our communication skills and our communication needs to be very consistent. So when we communicate openly and honestly with our children, this fosters trust with them. This gives opportunities for open dialogue. Now, again, sometimes when our children are teenagers, they don't want to open dialogue with us. Some kids do, and it's really easy. One of my children, my middle kid, will talk to me about things. He might at first hold it close to the chest, but eventually he is going to talk. I always know how he feels. I know where he stands. It's very easy to dialogue with him. My oldest son has always been, it's like pulling teeth to know how he really feels about things. And it's really been very difficult. And part of that is because of the way I parented him very early on. There was less communication. It was more, you're just going to do what I say, because my parenting was very different because I was emotionally in a different place. And with my middle son, his personality is very different. A lot of it has to do with personalities, but his personality is very different. And my emotional health is much more even and effective in my parenting with him. And my youngest, he's feral. He's just feral because he's the youngest kid and there's so many years. And, as my oldest says, he never gets in trouble for anything. working on it. We are doing all the things. But when we are not openly communicating with our children and fostering that trust and open dialogue with them, it leads to misunderstanding, it leads to conflict, it leads to distrust, and we're just not, when we're not sharing with our children things appropriately, and we're not allowing them to share with us how they really feel about things without getting in trouble or without having a punishment for their feelings or being overly criticized for how they feel about something, we are going to create a dissonance with our children and a distance with them. And this creates ineffective parenting, especially as they get older and have their own opinions on things. The fourth thing that our emotional health needs to be regulated so that we can effectively parent is setting boundaries. This is a big one. This is one, like with my 7-year-old, that I'm having to relearn because the bar is different. The fence has moved. So we need to change boundaries with him. Based on his personality, based on my own personality, based on how I've changed in parenting and how my emotional health has been over the last several years. So we're reestablishing boundaries and setting our boundaries. When we are setting good, healthy boundaries, this means that we're setting clear, consistent boundaries that show the consequences for actions that are not allowed. And this helps our children feel safe and secure because they know what to expect from us. When we say, if you do not do X, Y will happen, and we consistently maintain that boundary and allow them to feel consequences of their actions, this makes our parenting more effective. It gives us natural respect and authority because our children are going to feel more safe and secure because they know what to expect. When we don't set clear boundaries with our children, when we don't enforce the way that a consequence should be in their life, this makes gives them inconsistent expectations of what to expect from us and the world around them. And this causes confusion, which leads to misunderstanding, which leads to conflict, which leads to, it can lead to just a very strained relationship or no relationship with our children. And I think the fifth thing that is very important in being an effective parent that we need to consider in our own emotional health is modeling healthy behaviors. Having healthy coping strategies and mechanisms for our own stressors, making sure that we are doing the healthy things, we're modeling the healthy behavior, we're doing the thing, and we're not just saying what to do. If we're saying we need to eat healthy, we're eating healthy, and we're not just telling someone to eat healthy. If we're saying we need to exercise, we're doing the exercise. We're not just telling our children they need to exercise. And it also means that modeling healthy behavior is teaching them how to problem solve and allowing them to struggle a little bit and feel the consequences of their actions and allowing them to appropriately struggle so that they can problem solve themselves. I am working on this with my 7-year-old because here's the consequence of being the youngest child and being much younger than your other brothers, is everything is done for you. And so now we are not self-sufficient at all and everybody has to do everything for me. So I'm trying to teach him how to problem solve. I'm trying to teach him how to do things for himself so that my parenting is more effective and so that he grows up to be a good human and doesn't expect everybody to do everything for him. So I'm sorry, youngest children, if this was you, help. Let me know what helped you, what your parents did that helped you to be more independent, because I am struggling with this, because I'm human and I'm not perfect. So we're reestablishing, problem solving for him, modeling those healthy behaviors. And just, having positive relationships in our relationships with other people is modeling a healthy behavior, making sure that we're not, in toxic relationships, that we're not allowing other people to cross boundaries with us, that we're modeling the healthy behaviors that we are saying our children should do, especially when they're teenagers. Our children see everything. They see things we don't think they see. And they are very intuitive oftentimes. I know my oldest son kind of dropped the bombshell on me when, we talked to him about a huge liminal transition that was coming up for our family. And he's like, oh yeah, I already saw this coming. And it was shocking to me because I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I was not, being as authentic and real with my kids as I thought I was. They saw right through some things. And it really was a bomb that was dropped on me. When we are being ineffective with our emotional health, this is ineffective in our parenting because then we are modeling negative behaviors. Examples like substance abuse, aggression, avoidance. If we're avoiding our own stuff and we're avoiding doing tasks that we need to do, if we're avoiding taking care of ourselves, if we're just being avoidant in general, if we're procrastinating things, if we're not taking action on things, we're telling them they have to do the thing, but we're not doing the thing. We're not modeling the healthy behavior, but we're expecting them to oftentimes. So we have to make sure we're being consistent in this area and modeling healthy behaviors for our children because they learn more from what we do rather than what we say. So we want to be effective that way. And our emotional health absolutely affects this. So how do we get better at this? Because I know I have really messed up because I'm human and you're human, we all mess up. There are times that I've really messed up. And so I've had to ask for forgiveness and give them that choice to forgive me or not when I recognize this. And this means we have to have better awareness. So how we get better at this is increasing our awareness, increasing that what we're doing, increasing our own knowing our own emotions and understanding how they affect our body, our minds, our spirits, our stress levels. And that means that we have to have self-care. We have to have better self-care. We have to prioritize taking care of ourselves. When you're in an airplane, one of the first things they tell you, if the plane is going down and the little masks come down, put your mask on first before you put your child on. It is so true. We have to take care of ourselves first. We have to be our first priority. Our children are not our first priority. I know that feels gross. I know that feels icky. That's not what the world kind of tells us, but this is true. We have to take care of ourselves first. We are our first priority. If we are not okay, our children are not going to be okay. And sometimes that looks crazy, the things that we have to do to some people, and people are going to judge it, but we have to take care of ourselves. This is something I am really learning. I am in that liminal space of learning this, and I can tell you the more I take care of myself, the better my parenting, the more effective my parenting is, and the better my relationships with my kids. We have to seek support. We have to be willing to ask for help. We have to be willing to be open to new parenting styles, to new parenting things, to what other people have tried, and use our own discernment and our own intuition then to kind of say, is that right for me and my child? Because not everything is going to be effective in how we parent with our children. And when we're talking about our own emotional health again, we have to give ourselves grace. We have to give ourselves compassion. We have to give our children grace and compassion. And we have to do it consistently. We don't just do it when we really mess up. We do it all the time, because the thing is that we feel more loved. Our children feel more loved when we are being loving, and we are being loving when we are empathizing and showing compassion. And this doesn't mean they get off easy street. This means sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do sometimes is allowing someone to feel the consequences of their actions. It's hard. It's hard when it's our kids. We don't want them to hurt, but sometimes they have to feel that so that they can become good humans. We have to make sure that we are emotionally regulating ourselves through healthy habits, through healthy behaviors, through having healthy strategies for ourselves when we are in stress. We have to make sure that we're using I statements. This is really important. We're using I statements when we're to effectively communicate with our children. It's not always you. It's I feel this way because blah, blah, blah. Not because you did this, you made me feel this way, you did this thing, you are bad. No, that doesn't work. That's not effective communication. That's not, I'm going to teach them anything. That's not going to help them grow. And that's not us being emotionally regulated. We have to set clear boundaries and give clear limits and enforce them consistently. And this is hard. It really is hard. There are so many times when I have just hoped and prayed, when I have said, okay, this is the consequence for this action if you do this thing. And I'm like, please don't do it. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. And then they do it. And then we have to follow through on the negative consequence, and it sucks. But I will say, when I have done that, it has helped them grow, and it has helped me to be more effective in their relationship, in their growing relationship. And we see them grow by leaps and bounds consistently. I think that is the key there. And we have to create a healthy home environment. And it takes two. If there are two parents in the home, multiple parents in the home, we can't do it all, but we can be responsible for what we are doing. There's a lot I can say about this, but I think we can only do what we can do. And then we have to make choices about that. But it's very important that we create a healthy home environment for our children that is consistent and that allows them to have open dialogue, allows them to have the open communication with us, allows them to feel loved unconditionally, allows us to spend quality time with them and meaningful time and investing in that relationship with them. And when all else fails, when we are super frustrated, when we just feel like we're being ineffective in our parenting, or we're just really struggling, because it happens, because we're human, seek professional help. Sometimes we just need a place to be able to say, I feel like an ineffective parent. And sometimes that's all it takes, is someone then validating what we're doing. Because sometimes we feel like we're a terrible parent. I actually had this happen this morning I was talking with a friend about some parenting stuff, and they mentioned how some of the things that I had mentioned previously were mentioned by other people to try in their parenting that they were a little bit resistant to. And I told them, I was like, man, I'm so glad you said that to me, because I feel like a terrible parent sometimes, because I was like telling you to do things you didn't really like or didn't want to do. And it made me feel like, oh, am I a terrible parent? And just saying that out loud gave me freedom to know, no, these things are good and right and true. And sometimes our children have to be really uncomfortable in order to grow. And it just helped me being able to say those things out loud. And that was just with a friend. But sometimes it means we need a deeper, more effective professional help. And that's okay. There's no shame in that, because guess what? We're all learning as we go. None of us have it figured out. There is not a manual. We are all just learning as we go. And that's part of the journey of parenting. Yay. Okay, so here's some questions that we can ask ourselves to make sure that we are staying emotionally healthy and being effective in our parenting. The first question is can I manage my own emotions? Like, do I have the skills necessary to manage my own emotions? Or do I need to, build some skills? Do I need to build some skills and have more awareness to manage my emotions more effectively? Do I take my frustrations out on my kids? Or do I have some healthy coping mechanisms to deal with my own frustrations? Am I modeling healthy ways to express all emotions? All emotions, not just happy emotions. Are we expressing in healthy ways the negative emotions, anger, frustration, sadness, bitterness, disappointment? Like, are we modeling these things in healthy ways for our children so that they see it, and that we're being effective in our parenting, of teaching them these things? Do I validate their feelings? Even if I don't agree with their actions, especially when they're teenagers, are we validating their feelings? Even if we don't agree, even if we don't feel that same way about something, are we validating them? And allowing them to have their feelings, I think, is super important, giving them space to feel those feelings. And what goes along with that then is, am I also setting clear, consistent boundaries that I am enforcing? Am I allowing them to feel their feelings, but I'm also enforcing the boundaries and the expectations? I'm upholding the expectations I have set for my children and making them very clear to them what those expectations are and boundaries are. Am I doing that? And am I encouraging them? Because, that feels all negative and gross and hard, right? But here's the other question is am I encouraging them in their efforts? When I see them doing something that is hard for them, or they're, my kids, my two oldest played baseball. Like, am I there? Am I encouraging them? Am I encouraging their achievements? Am I encouraging them in the thing that they love, even if I don't get it? Like my youngest just started doing karate. Baseball's not his thing. And it's been kind of rough. I'll be honest with you. It's been rough. He's learning new things. He's not great at it by any means. We've only had like 4 classes, but am I encouraging him where I see him trying, where I see him putting the effort? Am I encouraging him? And when he's making better choices, when he's doing the things I'm asking him to do, am I just allowing, it's just because that's my expectation, you just do it? Or am I encouraging them when I see them putting in the effort and doing the things that I'm asking them to do? Am I teaching them problem solving skills by allowing them to appropriately struggle first? When they were little and we were teaching them to tie their shoes, we let them struggle a little bit, right? Appropriately. We had them try and they would get flustered and frustrated. And we let them struggle a little bit because they need to learn it. This is a problem solving skill. Well, when they're teenagers, we have to do the same thing. If they're making choices that aren't good for them, are we allowing them to struggle in their choices appropriately, for their age, to allow them to problem solve it out and say, okay, I need to change. I need to make this change for myself. But first they have to feel the struggle sometimes. They have to feel the consequences of their actions. And am I allowing them to feel those consequences effectively? Am I covering for them? Am I always trying to get them out of trouble in school? Am I always trying to make things easy for them? Or am I allowing them to feel the consequences of their actions? Am I upholding the consequences that I have set out for them not meeting a certain expectation that is just like a human expectation that they need to do? And I think what's really important in all this is, am I open to learning new ways to parent? This has been one of the best things for me. Like I said, huge age gap. So the way I parented my 18-year-old when he was 7 is not how I'm parenting my 7-year-old. And I'm finding the balance. I'm finding, new ways. I'm open to ideas that other people have. And I'm using my intuition and using my own discernment to see if that is right. And I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try new things. So are we being open? Are we being flexible? Or is it my way or the highway? And this is how I parent, and that's it. And lastly, and perhaps, like I said, the most important thing for us to be emotionally balanced and be effective parents is, am I prioritizing my own emotional health and self-care? Am I? Really, truly? And if not, what do I need to change to be able to do this more or better? Do I need help? Do I need someone to step in? Do I need to invest in myself in a way? Do I need to go to therapy? Do I need coaching? Do I need to have some professional help to help me prioritize my own emotional health and regulation? Okay, I hope these questions are helpful. Your bold challenge today is to ask yourself some of these questions. If you're struggling with some parenting with your kids, ask yourself these questions and be open. And I would say, let's take it even further. If you're asking yourself these questions, have a conversation with a trusted friend about these questions, who knows your parenting style, who sees your parenting, and ask them for some open feedback about some of these questions that you're having. Okay, have a wonderful Wednesday.